Welcome back to cold old Iowa. It is sunset in a ridiculously cold and frozen field. And today we're going to be doing a review of the Sony A7C or 7C depending on how you read it. It is a baby-sized clone of the A7 III with a flip-out screen. Let's go inside where it is less pretty and well, there's less snow. Golden hour unboxing of the A7C and review because I've already been using it. So quickly, this is an A7C. It is part of, well, it's part of the A7 family. We'll just open this, go in. You get manuals like normal. Okay, the A7 lineup has historically been a full-size camera with a full-frame lens. Now, with Sony, they have kind of switched it up a little bit. Let me get you lit. They've switched it up with the full-frame camera, but they've gone with a compact body or a sub full-size body. So we are now greeted with a more A6600 style camera. It's a little bit bigger, but it still has a good grip size with, you know, the full frame cameras in mind. We are full flippy LCD screen, 24 megapixels, 4K video, 30 and 24 frames per second. It does slow-mo at 1080p, 120 frames a second. It does not do 4K 60 and it does not do 4K 120 like the A7S III. However, this is the new layout for, here, let me see if I can solve your lighting woes. This is the new layout for Sony cameras. We are doing the menu button up top. We are doing compensation dials with most cameras now, where you can do the exposure. Dials on the back here, but none on the front. It is basically the A7 III rebirthed into a smaller camera with new features. However, I believe it's shooting better than an A7 III does, because I used to shoot with an A7 III, and it seems to be a cleaner image. Oh. It is way too freaking cold out here. It is 12 degrees outside. We're going for an indoor review inside the rental car. Holy moly.
To go get smoothies for my parents, and I'm looking for the other straw, and I leaned over my phone.
Yeah, outside on a random back road. No matter what you try to do, you're always in my my video making process.
All right, well, okay, I gotta go.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Before my wife calls me again, like I was saying, the A7C is the new compact full-frame camera that Sony has released. And I know it's not that new, but for a lot of you guys, you're probably still shooting the A7 III, the A7S2, and some A7 or A7R variant. Now, if you're looking at this saying, oh my goodness, I don't want to spend basically more money or about the same amount of money to get an A7 III. You're not. You're not getting an A7 III. You're getting an A7 III if it was made correctly. This has the flip out screen that rotates. It has obviously only one SD card slot, but the argument for two is always very weird for me. It has a new port layout for headphone jack, charging, and data transfer. And it also has obviously your microphone jack like you need. Now, the advantages with this one is it's super compact. So you could fit two of these in the spot that one normal A7 III usually takes. The batteries are still the standard bigger FC100s, I think is what they're called. The autofocus seems to be better for some reason, and maybe it's a firmware update with both the A7 III and the A7C, but it seems better than the A7 III when I was using it full time. The menu button up top in the middle, the dedicated recording button up top, the dials, everything just feels better placed. The little viewfinder, someone might get mad that it's on the side, but most A7s aren't being used for photos unless it's an R series. However, the 24 megapixel sensor that's in this and the A7 III, great for photos. I will attach a bunch of images now. And those are all shot with this camera and the A7 III. The video on this I will attach now. And the video that you just saw was from the A7C, and I also put some that's through a external recorder. Now this is where it gets fun. I think that Sony, as good as their recording is and their quality of image, when you get an Atomos Ninja V, it unlocks some level of quality I think you kind of miss out on through recording on the SD card, because you're obviously limited by bitrate. And so with an external recorder, you're going to get a little more bitrate, a little more fidelity in those images. Now, is it life-changing? Of course not. It's basically taking the same image that's coming through this over HDMI, which this has the dreaded micro HDMI port that I don't like, but you're able to take that clean image and record it to something better and a better codec than what is recording onto most Sony cameras. Now, even the new ones, the A7S III, the codec could be better. It's not as bad, but it still could be better. So Atomos Ninjas can record to ProRes, which if you're editing on a Mac is amazing. ProRes on a Mac is just as smooth as butter. The files are gigantic. Anna, my wife, and I are recording a very exciting project with her basketball training program. And that's all through the Atomos Ninja. And it just gives me the ability to see so many more things. Obviously, external monitors with a camera is just the way to go. The monitor on here is better than the older ones with the viewing angles, but it's also just better because of the color is better on this monitor. But if you have the option to shoot long projects, big projects, where you need to dial in the brightness of your image, the color contrast, the white balance, everything, spend your $200 to even get a low-grade external field monitor. I will link a couple that I've actually owned or messed with. The A7C, I believe it's more of a mid-tier camera. If you're buying this, you're probably not buying field recorders as well. So how does this look? The codec is pretty good. The dynamic range, the only thing that's going to beat is the A7S III in the Sony lineup. So this thing is killer. Everything that you heard and you were excited about the A7 III, this has and more. And the fact that you can store it, like my hands are big, but like you can legitimately carry two of these cameras by yourself and switch between the two if you want to have two different lenses. If you want to have, you know, one on a rig and one on a stand, or hold one, and it's so light, compact, and it still has a decent grip. Like obviously it would be great if it had an extension for me, but the size for it for most people is going to be perfect. It has a nice bump, it has a nice feel to it. The record button on top again is going to be money. I think that Sony with this one, minus the software, has knocked it out of the park. Now that being said, the software, what's wrong with it? Well, it just has the old A7 III software in it, which makes it not as good as it should be. Now the A7S III, I keep pointing at it because it's what's recording me right now. The A7S III's software is almost perfect. It's not, it's a little confusing, it's a little overwhelming, but previous to that, the software that's, and the interface, the thing that you scroll through, the software, is just kind of mind-numbingly complex. It doesn't really feel like you've gone somewhere different. It just feels like there's a lot of pages in this menu. And so to find one menu item versus another is kind of a joke. What made me really annoyed is that they basically built an A7S III sort of styled camera before they released the A7S III, but they didn't include the new software in this camera. So they could have had a good leap forward into having consistent software going forward, like an Apple product and sometimes the Google flagship phones and Macs and Windows and all those sort of things where it feels unified, which I know Windows sometimes feels like a mess and not unified. But the problem is that Sony's software is always different depending on what camera you have, which would make sense if it was pro and consumer that were different. But all their prosumer, kind of mid-tier pro, not cinema cameras, all have different menu structures, and every time a camera is released, they release a new menu structure or an update, and so when you go to your new camera, it's different and it's still broken. I hope Sony, not that you're going to watch this video, but if you do anything with the A7C with firmware, update the menu structure to the A7S III menu structure. People will love it. People will then, when they move to the next camera that you guys release, will understand what you're doing, because the software on here is the only gripe. The photos are amazing. The videos are amazing. The stabilization is as good as Sony has released, besides the A7S III again. But it's an A7 III compact edition with everything that you could ever want, and low light, noise, all these things just look great. So if you're looking for something that's a little more handheld than an A7 III, which is still pretty portable, the A7C is going to be the way to go. Or if you're just a smaller person and maybe you don't like lugging around a lot of hardware and weight. I personally will rock around a backpack, sometimes weighing up to 60 pounds, and that's just some camera gear and all the other parts that come along with it, like laptops and drives and just power and batteries and all these things. And so if you're wanting to get just a little less real estate, a little less weight in the backpack or bag that you're handling around when you go to shoot, get an A7C. It's gonna save you probably a pound on weight. It's gonna save you a lot of space on just volume. And so I think the A7C, if you haven't bought a new camera since the A7 II, the A7R II, maybe the A7S original, this is going to be your solution. Yes, the A7S III is out and you could buy that. You probably have to have $3,600 though, and it's on back order. The A7R IV is about the same price. And again, you probably don't need 50 megapixels or 60. The A7 IIs are so outdated with autofocus that the A7 III could be your solution, but again, A7C is just, it kind of has that vlog life style option if you want to do it, and just the fact if you're shooting down, you can shoot looking down at your screen and not have it kind of work. It works completely. So my recommendation is A7C all the way, unless you need the A7S unpacking of features or the A7R IV unpacking of features. A9, of course not. A7 III, I still like the A7C more. A7 II and all those things, like I said, and the A6600 and 6500 and 6400, I'm still back to the full frame life. Thanks guys, the sun is running out. It is now getting cold again in my car, and I hope you like this review. It's a little weird one. It's 12 degrees out, and I'm on a country road and everything is frozen. So send me a like for just sticking it out and being in the middle of winter and delivering you guys a review. comment to ask questions about what specific features you're concerned about with this camera, or maybe if you're looking at other Sony cameras. I would love to answer those. I always try to make the most out of your guys' comments. Thanks again, and I will see you guys again next video.